One of the biggest myths that's been put around business schools and in the business community in general is the myth of sustainable competitive advantage. The fact that advantage can be sustained over time. No advantage lasts forever. You might be great at customer service, you might be the best in terms of a particular technology, but in the end you'll get run down. The evidence all points to the fact that even great businesses can only sustain leadership in their particular business for a brief period of time. The fact is that if you're relying on what you do well now to stay in front in the future, you will get run down. If you're not innovating, finding new ways to create value, if you don't have those processes in place, you will get run down.
One of the key issues that we look at in the UQ Business School Innovation Leadership course is the question of what is an innovation. Many firms think that if they're not coming up with sexy new products like an iPod, that they're not actually being innovative. The fact of the matter is there's a whole range of ways that firms can be innovative and bring new ideas to market. Part of it is in fact coming up with new ideas. So an iPod, new features like the variable speed transmission in the Toyota Prius, or even new services like the first variable rate mortgage. But there are a number of other ways that firms can come up with new ideas and bring them to market in innovative ways. There's coming up with new methods of production. So the Boeing 787 is made in a completely different way. It's assembled in different locations and then put together in one place. It's the first time that an airplane has been built in that method. There's coming up with new sources of supply. So firms are being innovative in the oil industry by trying to extract oil from shale rock and coming up with different methods of finding oil and bringing that to market. The last way that firms can be innovative is by coming up with a new form of organization. So when Ford came up with the assembly line, it changed the way that we manufacture. W.L. Gore has changed the way that we organize small teams of innovators and put them in small groups of self-managed teams of 6 to 8 people. That again is quite innovative. So all of these forms are ways that firms can come up with new ideas and new products. It's not just coming up with a sexy new product like an iPod, it's coming up with a new idea and executing it.
Introducing innovation into mature businesses is something that existing and mature businesses need to address today. It can be very challenging. There's a lot of battles and we need to come up with new antidotes to how we're going to solve some of the battles that mature businesses face, introducing something that can be very disruptive to existing practices and processes. When you introduce innovation capability into a business, ideas can come from any part, and some of these ideas can compete with strategy. Now the theory says that the idea should relate to the strategy, but what if a great idea doesn't? What do you do? The 3M story is a great story as an example of innovation where 3M were in the sandpaper business, and the strategy for 3M was around how to create better sandpaper. But they had an employee who recognised a problem where painters for cars needed to have masking tape which would stick on and pull off, and he decided he was going to solve this problem. Now the general manager or the owner of 3M at the time didn't want their business to head in that direction, but the employee wanted to anyway, and they were so successful that they actually invented masking tape. And it also became how 3M modelled their business, which was that any idea is a good idea and any idea can lead the strategy.
What's the end game here? The end game is sustainable performance, attempting to guarantee the performance of the organisation for both today and tomorrow. Some companies get caught in a trap where they become biased to the short term. The company therefore biases its decision making with regard to new product and service development to what's going to provide the quick hit in the short term. The detriment then to the company is that it starves the organisation of funding and thinking toward longer term time horizons where major competitive threats may ensue.
It's true to say, I think, that existing frameworks for thinking about strategy do not sit well with innovation, do not sit well with dynamic competitive advantage, trying to stay one step ahead. If you think about SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, what are the assumptions here? The assumptions are that we know what the threats are, that we know what the opportunities are, that everything's knowable in the first place. I mean, obviously when we're talking about innovation, the future hasn't been invented yet. There's a great deal of uncertainty. We don't know what our competitors will come up with. So SWOT analysis is really for a more sedate business environment. If you think about Porter's 5 forces, another thing that is very dominant in terms of thinking about strategy, Porter's 5 forces is more or less assuming a static business environment. How do we think about innovation with Porter's 5 forces? Porter's 5 forces, you've got to remember that this thing was devised almost 40 years ago now, and yet it's still the dominant framework for thinking about strategy. What I'm saying is that we need a new set of frameworks for thinking about innovation strategy. So at UQ Business School, we really try to integrate innovation and strategy together, and there are several tools that we're looking at that can help us do that. Gerald Marion and Deloitte are looking at the 3 horizons, saying you need a portfolio of strategy. You need to think about what's happening now, what's happening next, what will disrupt our business models. We're also looking at a value chain process of having a disciplined process to innovation that is consistent with our strategy. So we're really trying to bring these 2 things together. Innovation has to be part of strategy if strategy is to be successful in the 21st century.
Deloitte is one of the fastest growing Big 4 in Australia. Over the last 3 to 5 years, we have been growing profit twice faster than revenue. This is due to very disciplined execution of our strategy. Our growth strategy is made of 5 different elements. There's on one side, there's granular performance management through sale-based growth. On the other side, there's innovation and the 3 horizons. Horizon 1 is really about driving maximum output from your core business. Horizon 2 is about driving benefit from your product and new services. And Horizon 3 is about new business ideas, new business models that are going to disrupt the current business model. At Deloitte, innovation occurs across the 3 levels, Horizon 1, Horizon 2 and Horizon 3, and has helped to ensure that our profit has been growing faster than our revenue.
Organisations need to be able to execute their individual new product or service development projects. The dominant method here is stage gate. This is a method to take an idea all the way through to market launch. The method rests on mapping out a series of stages that the project needs to go through. Entry from one stage to the next is punctuated by a gate. That gate is occupied by portfolio or senior management decision makers, where the project team needs to bring a set of deliverables to the gate, and the portfolio decision makers will determine if the project should go to the next stage, be killed, be sent back to perform the earlier stage again, or be put on hold. This is a method for the organisation to tie increased investment in a project to the reduction in risk.